You keep running the tape back, looking for the exact frame, the seam, where real turned into episode, where the person who looked at you like you were the whole world became a symptom you were standing too close to. And the terrible thing is, the harder you look for that seam, the less sure you get that any of it was real at all. If the ending was the illness, maybe the beginning was too. Maybe the whole thing was weather, and you were the only one who thought it was a home. I want to sit with that question today, because it's one of the cruelest ones a breakup can leave you holding, and because the way you're asking it is quietly leading you somewhere false. So let me say the first thing plainly, and then I'll show you why. The fact that you're even asking, was it real, is not evidence that it wasn't. It's evidence that you're someone who takes love seriously enough to check. People who never really love don't lie awake questioning it. So today I'll give you, from the inside, a way to tell what was the state and what was the bond, without rewriting your own history in the process. And stay with me, because underneath this whole question, there's a better one waiting, about whose that connection actually was. And the answer is something you get to keep, no matter how it ended. I'm Clara, from Bipolar Clarity. Let me start with what mania can and can't do to a feeling, because this is the misunderstanding that's torturing you. Here's the frightening half, and I won't pretend it away. A high can counterfeit almost anything. It can manufacture certainty, urgency, the soulmate-in-a-week rush, the grand declaration, the sense that the two of you are a once-in-a-lifetime thing the universe arranged. That intensity can be real as an experience and still be chemically a firework, something that goes up fast, blinds everyone looking, and then falls back to earth as smoke. So yes, some of the fireworks were the illness. That part of your fear is not paranoid, but here's the half that fear won't let you see. Mania can light the fireworks. What it cannot do is keep a small flame burning quietly on an ordinary Tuesday, when nothing is exciting and there's nothing to perform. Fireworks are about intensity. Love is about texture, the specific, unglamorous, low-wattage things. And texture is the thing an episode cannot fake, because faking it requires exactly the steadiness an episode doesn't have. So the question was never, were the fireworks real? The question is, underneath the fireworks, was there ever a steady flame? Because that's the part that was actually yours. Let me tell you something from the inside, from the perspective of the person in the high, because it answers the question that's really keeping you up. When someone loves you from inside a high, the feeling is not a con. They are not sitting there performing an emotion they don't have. The certainty is completely real to them in that moment, which is exactly why it can be so convincing and so devastating when it evaporates. And here's the part that torments people most. The thing you've probably searched at 2 a.m, after the episode, they can seem to just move on, fast, like it meant nothing, like they've forgotten you. I need you to hear what that usually is, because it is almost never what it looks like. When the state resets, the intensity it generated resets with it. And from the outside, that can look like proof the whole thing was fake. It usually isn't proof of anything about you. It's the firework going out. Some people later, in calm, do quietly realize what they felt and what they lost. And some never say so. But their speed of moving on is a fact about the illness's chemistry, not a verdict on whether you were lovable. Do not let how quickly they seem to recover become your evidence about what you were worth. So here's how you check. And the single most important rule is when you check, not what you look for. You audit in calm, never in the storm. Move 1, look at the relationship in ordinary time. Not the peak, not the crash, the flat middle. Take the fireworks out of the frame entirely and ask, in the plain, unremarkable stretches, was there care, attention? A person actually seeing you? Judging a whole relationship by its most intense moments is like judging a climate by its loudest storm. Go look at the ordinary Tuesdays. Move 2. And this is the distinction I want you to hold, texture over intensity. Let me make it concrete. Intensity is the spontaneous flight booked at midnight, the "you're my soulmate 3 weeks in," the overwhelming sweep you off your feet gesture. Texture is smaller and far more telling. They remembered exactly how you take your coffee. They knew which of your stories you were shy about. They showed up on a boring, rainy Tuesday when there was nothing thrilling about it and no audience to perform for. Intensity is what a high manufactures. Texture is what only real attention builds. And it's the one thing no episode can fake. Move 3. Look at what got built. Fireworks leave nothing behind but smoke. A real fire leaves warmth in the walls. So look for the built things, the daily showing up, the way they learned you over time, the quiet accommodations no manic rush would bother with, the inside joke that took months to form, the way they'd start doing the small thing you like without being asked, the times they were tired or low or unexcited and chose you anyway, because that's the choice a high never has to make, and a real bond makes constantly. Those aren't the products of a state. They're the products of a person choosing you, ordinarily, repeatedly, when it wasn't exciting. That kind of evidence a high simply doesn't produce. Now, one crucial warning, because it cuts the other way, and it's the trap you're most likely to fall into right now. Do not run this audit from the bottom of your own grief. Just as a high can counterfeit love into existence, a low can erase it. And heartbreak is a kind of low. If you sit in the worst of the pain and ask, was any of it real? The grief will answer, no, none of it. You imagined the whole thing. With the same false confidence a depression uses to tell someone they've never been loved. That's not clarity. That's the wound talking. So don't ask this question in the middle of the storm. Wait for a steadier hour and ask it then. You'll get a truer answer. And there's a second wound hiding inside the first one, so let me name it. The fear that if some of it wasn't real, then your own judgment is broken. That you can't trust your heart anymore because look how completely it was fooled. Please don't let this breakup teach you that lesson, because it's the wrong one. Responding to real warmth with real warmth isn't a malfunction. It's your heart working exactly as it should. An illness that can counterfeit intensity would fool almost anyone standing close to it. Being moved by what looked like love is not a flaw in you. It's the most human thing there is. You don't need to armor your heart against ever feeling deeply again. You just need the one calm weather test you're learning right now. Keep the openness, add the discernment. That's not a broken instrument, that's a wiser one. I also have to be gentle and clear about a limit here. You cannot diagnose your ex, and this matters, you don't need to. You don't actually need to know whether a given moment was the bipolar or them to know how you were treated. Decide by how they left you, not by a label you're guessing at from the outside. And if what happened wasn't just a painful ending, but genuine cruelty, control, or abuse, please hear this. That was not love with bad luck attached, and no diagnosis turns it back into love. If any of that is sitting in your story, you'll find crisis and support lines for your country at the link in the description, wherever you are. Put them in your phone. And however this is landing, you shouldn't have to sort through it alone. I send out a short, plain language note each week for people making sense of exactly this. Gentle, honest, no pressure. It's free, and the link's in the description. So let me answer the better question I promised. The one underneath, was it real? You've been asking whether the connection belonged to them, whether it was theirs to give and theirs to take back when they left. But turn it around. That connection you felt, the depth of it, the tenderness, the way you loved so hard you're now auditing it months later. That was never their gift to you. That was your capacity. It came from you. They may have been the person you spent it on, but the ability to feel it, to build it, to mean it, that lives in you, and it did not walk out the door when they did. You didn't lose your capacity to love like that. You lost the person you were spending it on, and those are not the same loss, because one of them is replaceable and it isn't the one you were most afraid you'd lost. The fireworks were the illness, maybe. But if there was a steady flame in the ordinary hours, and when you look in calm, I think you'll find there was, that flame was lit by something real in you. It didn't go out when they left. It's still yours to give, to someone. Even first to yourself. If this gave you a little more solid ground, subscribe. We're building a calm, honest library for the people who love and grieve someone through this. And your next step is on the screen. It's the one I'd point you to next. I'll see you there. Be as gentle with yourself as the version of you that loved so completely would want you to be. Because that person is still in there, and they were never the illusion.